All right, we'll go ahead and call the board meeting to order. Good morning. Today is Tuesday, February 23rd, and this is a regular meeting of the Kings County Board of Supervisors. Due to issues arising from COVID-19, the board is using a teleconferencing format for today's meeting. We are participating via the World Wide Web. If you would like to make a public comment today, please make sure you identify by name. You're identified by name in the WebEx system. For those interested in commenting during unscheduled appearances, please use the raise your hand feature and wait to be recognized. Each speaker will be allowed up to 2 minutes for public comment. Each vote today will be a verbal or voice vote so that members of the public can hear how each board member has voted. After we have had a motion and a second regarding each item we are taking up today, we will be doing a roll call vote by district. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Joe Nibs. Richard Valley.
Here.
Doug Verboon.
Here.
Craig Peterson.
Here.
Richard Fagundes.
Here. Good. We have 5 present. We'll move on to the invocation. Chad Fagundes from the Koinonia Church. Welcome, Chad.
You guys bow and close your eyes. And so, Father, we come to you this morning and I'm reminded of the passage that says, your mercies are new. Father, I just pray for every person that is watching, that is board meeting, that you would bring a special visit to those who feel from you. God, we ask your presence would be today. I pray for your God, would you speak in hope to give them a personal word and encouragement, bring godly counsel to them, to a friend. Father, would you just impact life today and again breathe hope. God, I pray this morning because I your presence change. We invite you into this day. We guide and direct to impact. Ask for open heavens over King County. Give us God, and would you give us favor with man? In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Thank you. Please join me in the flag salute. Ready, salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with as well. All right, this time we'll move to unscheduled appearances. Any person may directly address the board at this time on any item on the agenda or any other items of interest to the public that is within the subject matter jurisdiction of the board. 2 minutes are allowed for each item. Madam Clerk? Oh, we have Sheriff Robinson in the house today. Sheriff Robinson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. A few months ago, there was an incident in the Stratford area just south of Lemoore where two deputies went to investigate a vehicle burglary report. And during that investigation, they also discovered that the laborers there that were working had not only some of their property stolen, but their lunches stolen. So the two deputies, Sergeant Gilson and Deputy Josh Chavez, went and purchased lunch in the city of Lemoore and brought it back. And when they brought it back, the victims had already left the scene. So they called them and they ended up connecting and delivering pizza to them. All this went unnoticed by us, and we had no clue. The deputies just did it on their own, didn't say a word to anybody. And then later, one of the victims posted a thank you on Facebook to the deputies, and Supervisor Valley reached out to me and he said, "Hey, I want to make sure that those deputies get a public recognition." And so we're going to try to do this in person, and it's just got drug out a little bit, obviously, because of the pandemic. And so Supervisor Valley and I talked a week or so ago, and so we decided that we would just do it remotely today. And so I want to turn it over to Supervisor Valley because I know he had some words that he wanted to say specifically to the deputies who should be online somewhere, somehow.
Go ahead, Supervisor Valley. You're on mute.
Oh, good. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Sheriff, for giving me a couple of seconds. I do appreciate you taking the time to recognize these officers. To some, this might not sound like a big deal, but these farm workers who have been laboring in the fields all morning to come in for their lunch break to find out that their food was actually stolen, and to have these deputies have the heart and the mindfulness and the compassion to go out of their way to go in and order food and bring it back. To see that's something that, in my opinion, is definitely worthy of being recognized for those officers to do that. I wanted to publicly say thank you. Those, as we know, those are hardworking men and women in them fields in the middle of a pandemic. I can't imagine the kind of people that would go out of their way to steal their food and have them come in hungry. Those farm workers, they just went back in the field. They kept laboring and not knowing that you officers were going to be a blessing and go out and order food. So thank you. And working with Mr. Nate Ferrier, I have something for you gentlemen, and we're going to do it off camera, off board, but just a little something I want to show my appreciation. And so I'll connect here after the meeting, and we'll make it happen. So thank you, Mr. Sheriff, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Sheriff, and thank you, deputies, for your act of love and compassion for those hardworking folks. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Valley. And I'll just conclude by personally saying thanks to Josh Chavez and Jeremiah Gilson for your efforts that day. I see at least Josh is on screen, and I see Jeremiah's logged in. So thanks to both of you. They both did receive a Class C accommodation that was written up by the supervisor at the time, Sergeant Fuga, and that was placed in their personnel file. So thank you, Mr. Chairman. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you. And thanks to the officers as well, deputies. We, today's world, everybody's so fast to jump on the downside of things. And it's not often that we get to recognize the good side of things in the pandemic and, everybody being cooped up. And so, again, thanks to the sheriff and to the student staff and all your acts of kindness, and that's what makes the world go round. So again, thank you.
Very good.
Okay, further public comment. Is that Mr. Pierce, Tom Pierce? No, oh, that's Michael State. Okay. All right, very good. No further public comment. We'll move on to item 3, approval of the minutes from our February 9th, 2021 regular meeting.
So move it, Chair. Neves. Second, Verboen.
We have a motion and second. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Joe Nevs. Richard Valley. Ed Verboen. Craig Peterson.
Aye.
Richard Fagundes.
Yes.
Very good. We have 5 in favor. We'll move now to the consent calendar. And if there's no deletions, additions, or changes, then entertain a motion to accept the consent calendar.
Mr. Chair, can I seek clarification? I was under the understanding that item B was being pulled. Is that not the case?
I haven't been told that.
This is from behavioral health, item 3A. Is that right? 3B.
May I ask that that be pulled because of the disconnect in the communications? My understanding is that contract has not been approved by county council at this time.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll make it, do a motion on that?
Yeah,
I
you would
can't
make,
a motion.
yeah.
So I'll make a motion to pull item B, 3B.
3B.
Mr. Supervisor Verboen, it's not necessary to have a motion as long as there's consensus. If anyone objects to that request, we can certainly, the board can certainly entertain a motion.
Okay. That was my question.
Okay,
Thank you for hearing me out.
so we,
Move to adopt consent calendar as amended.
second, very good. We have a motion and second to I don't know, that may be online, right? Yeah. Just a reminder, please mute yourself if you're online so we don't get feedback. But so with respect to the consent calendar, we have a motion and a second. Madam Clerk, will please call the roll.
Joe Nevs.
Yes.
Richard Valley.
Aye.
Ed Verboen.
Yes.
Craig Peterson.
Aye.
Richard Fagundes.
Yes.
Okay, we have 5 in favor. Now we'll move to regular agenda items, and that's item A, Public Works, and Dominic Taberski.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, good morning. Domingo Cruz from Administrative Office. I'll be taking this item.
Very good, thank you. Morning.
Good morning again. So this morning, I'm here to request that your board reject the bid for the Senate Bill 81 Round 2 Juvenile Center Remodel Project and authorize the Public Works Department to re-advertise the project. So on January 12, 2021, your board authorized advertisement of the Senate Bill 81 Round 2 Juvenile Center Remodel Project. We did inform you then that bids were due to the county on February 18, 2021. And we're anticipating to be back in front of your board today, February 23rd, 2021, for the construction contract award approval. So on February 18, 2021, one responsive and responsible bid was submitted. However, the bid amount significantly exceeded the available funding allocated to this project. The architect's estimated probable cost for bidding purposes was $9.2 million. Funds are included in the adopted fiscal year 2020-2021 budget, budget unit 700003, KCSB 81 project, account number 94105, SB 81 project. So in February of 2020, the county held a pre-qualification process. From that process, 7 construction companies were pre-qualified to bid as the general contractor on this project. The list is on the second page of your agenda item. I'll read them. They are Broward Builders, Inc., David A. Bush, Inc., F&H Construction, Fields Construction, Inc., Sletton Construction Company, Stronghold Engineering Inc., and Zumwalt Construction Inc. A blind bid opening process occurred on February 18, 2021, last Thursday, resulting in a single bid from David A. Bush Inc. in the amount of $13,133,000 for the base bid. Accepting this bid would create a budget shortfall of approximately $4 million, which prompted the Public Works to recommend rejecting this bid and re-advertising the project. The re-advertising will not require a pre-qualification process in order to receive more bidders. As a result of re-advertising, a 1 month to 2 month delay of construction is anticipated. We inform you on January 12, 2021 that the start of construction is March 29, 2021, with a completion date of June 28, 2022. These dates will most likely change and will slide to the right. I believe the Director of Public Works, Dominic Tyberski, and the Chief of Probation, Kelly Zuniga, are also on the line. If you have further questions that I may not be able to answer. So with that, respectful request that your board reject the bid for the Senate Bill 81 Round 2 Juvenile Center Remodel Project and authorize the Public Works Department to re-advertise the project. Thank you.
I guess I have one question. Whoever wants to take it, can take it. We're going to re-advertise this. We've come in 4 million, roughly higher. I mean, what do we expect to achieve by resubmitting the offer at this point, knowing how far off we are?
Morning, Supervisor Peterson. This is Dominic Tibert. Can you hear me?
In and out. Just stay close to the speaker, please.
Okay.
Or the
Is that better?
microphone. Not much, but go ahead.
Okay. I'll try to enunciate as loud as I can. So I don't know that we'll be able to make up the $4 million. At this point, our hope is to give it another shot to keep this project alive by opening it up and abandoning the pre-qualification process. We hope to get more interested bidders. We'll see how that shakes out, and we'll see how that impacts the management aspect of the project that may prove a little more challenging. But this is our best approach to keep this project alive.
All right.
Mr. Chair, Dominic, is there a way to phase that project so that maybe we can at least get it started? Or,
So,
and try to make it a little more attractive to the contractors?
that's a great question. I think that's probably a question for Kelly Zuniga. And the reason I say that is because the state funding controls a lot of the aspects of this project. Kelly, are you on the line?
I am. Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the board. We have been allocated $9.6 million from the Board of State and Community Corrections. In order to phase in the project, it would most likely require a scope change. And as we have already been through one scope change, it is highly unlikely that the BSEC would consider another one, and we would run the risk of losing this funding.
Okay. Good. Appreciate the information. Thank you.
Of course.
Thank you for that as well. If I remember right, the real challenge in this was the fire marshal, right? Getting things approved. And so that was a state. It seems like there would be some leeway with respect to, the lengthy nature of the review from the state fire marshal. But,
Mr. Chair, I don't believe that as the Board of State and Community Corrections and the State Fire Marshal are in no way related, that there would be any consideration given to us. That was not our only delay. This project award came in January of 2015. And the project was slow to move. And then the state fire marshal obviously did not help matters any.
All right, well, I guess we'll float it out there again and see what happens with it, but we would need a motion to do that. So, that's
4 million short. How many cookie sales do we have to do to get $4 million?
On a $9 million project. That's a pretty big gap to fill.
Yeah.
Okay, well, the only way to do it is pull it out and start over again, right? We take a chance of losing the 9 million?
Yeah. Yeah, no, I guess that's the only options we have because, can't afford the whole thing and can't change the scope because then you run the risk of losing what you have. And
We did it with the jail project.
Well, that was, the
a little bit different.
creative.
We had, with the sheriff operations project, it did need to go back out. We needed to do some value engineering.
Yeah.
Because that one came in overpriced. This one, quite some time has gone by since we did the pre-qualification process. So a lot of the bidders dropped out. They got busy. So this would open up more competition. And the hope would be to close some of that gap. And then we'll have to look at other options.
So we can expedite this a little faster this next time, you think?
Well, we have to follow all the public works and public code requirements for bidding procedures, but we will move forward to do that.
All we can do.
Okay, I'll make a motion to reject and move forward.
Second that, Mr. Chair.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to do that. I have one question before we vote on that as well. So is this the SB 81 project? Is it mandated? There's something mandated in the facility that we absolutely have to have.
I know Chief Zuna could speak to some of the Title 15 and Title 24 requirements. We are improving our facility. Our old facility is quite outdated, and the goal was to make improvements in those areas.
Right.
Mr. Chair, if I might, it becomes more and more important to finalize this project due to the fact that the Division of Juvenile Justice is closing 2 counties. As of July 1, we will no longer be able to commit any youth to the Division of Juvenile Justice, and those youth are being realigned to the counties. We will now have long-term commitments in our facility, and our facility is in no way prepared for that. I have no way to adequately separate the regular juvenile hall commitments from what would be a realigned Division of Juvenile Justice youth that would then be in our custody perhaps until they're age 23. So there's a lot of considerations that are hitting us very quickly. It's unfortunate that the state took this position and decided to close DJJ, but that is the position we are in as a county and will be for the foreseeable future.
Okay, well, thank you for the clarification. And we do have a motion on the table. So Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Joe Nevs,
Yes.
Richard Valley,
Aye.
Edgar Boone,
Yes.
Craig Peterson,
Aye.
Richard Fagundes.
Yes.
Okay, we have 5 in favor. So on to item B, administration. Rebecca.
Yes, and I'm going to turn it over to Assistant CAO Carrie Martinez, and she'll take the item.
Good morning, Kyria.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. I'm so sorry. I thought we were going to do the public health update first.
Oh. Oh, well, I'm ready to go for that too. So sorry. I was jumping ahead. Okay, well, let's move on to the COVID item, the weekly item that your board receives. The last item update that was given to your board was on February 9th. And so I'll go through and give your board and the public an update on any activities at the state level that has occurred since the 9th, and also at the federal level. And then I'll turn it over to Director of Public Health, Mr. Edward Hill. Hopefully he should be on the line, and he'll give a local public health update. And then we'll ask the board for any action. So looking over the past couple of weeks, the governor did make a few announcements since the 9th. He did talk about that effective March 1st, California will start setting aside 10% of all available first vaccine doses for teachers. The state has already prioritized teachers in the current tier of the vaccine distribution, but the state continues to have supply shortages. Also, the Department of Public Health, the state California Department of Public Health, CDPH, released updated guidance for youth and adult organized sports, including school and community-sponsored programs. The guidance attempts to balance safely remaining physically active while reducing transmission in communities. The California legislature there was quite a bit of activity the last couple of weeks, and they did approve a $9.6 billion COVID relief package and sent it to the governor. The governor is expected to sign it today. So included in that package, I'll just go over what's in there. There's one-time $600 checks to low-income individuals through a, quote, Golden State stimulus program, including those low-wage workers eligible for earned income tax credits. Undocumented workers earning less than $75,000 who file their taxes, they have tax IDs and file them. CalWorks recipients, low-income seniors, and disabled residents who qualify for federal assistance through the SSI SSP program, and those eligible for state-funded cash assistance program for immigrants who don't qualify for the SSI because of their immigration status. Also included is an additional $2 billion to the California Small Business COVID-19 Relief Grant Program with a maximum grant size of $25,000 per business, a deduction for small business up to $150,000 in expenses covered by the Federal Paycheck Protection Program and Federal Economic Injury Disaster Loan Funds. There are 2 years of fee relief for 59,000 restaurants and bars licensed through the Department of Alcohol and Beverage Control. The agreement also reflects fee relief for more than 600,000 barbering and cosmetology individuals and businesses licensed through the Department of Consumer Affairs. Additional emergency financial aid for low-income community college students, that was $100 million, and farm workers required to quarantine, $24 million set aside. Also an allocation of $400 million in federal aid approved by Congress in late December for state subsidized childcare and preschool providers. This component of the package will extend care for children of essential workers through June of 2022. And funds will increase access to subsidized childcare for more than 8,000 children of essential workers and at-risk children who are not currently serving in the system through June of 2022. Also, restoration of previously enacted reductions effective July 1 of 2020. That includes the University of California, California State University, the judicial branch, child support services, and for moderate income housing. Okay. So that is the major state update. On the federal side, there's quite a bit of activity happening there as well. And there is a COVID relief package that is currently being negotiated. And the update on that right now is $195.3 billion will go to states and $130.2 billion will go to cities and counties. The $132 billion will be divided between cities and counties based on population. And so Kings County, out of that, was set aside $28.9 million, and that would be for us to use to respond to mitigate COVID-19 public health emergency or its negative economic impacts, to cover the costs incurred as a result of the emergency, to replace revenue that was lost, delayed, or decreased as a result of the emergency, and to address the negative economic impacts of the emergency. In the board's packet, there is a letter of support for that bill that we would like to have asked your board to approve today, so we can send it to Congressman Valadeo and support for the funding that would come to the county. So with that, that's the federal update I have, and I would like to turn it over to Director of Public Health to give the local health update.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Ed Hill, Public Health. I'd like to start off my report, as I always do, by reminding everyone the simple steps we can take to protect ourselves and our loved ones from communicable diseases, such as COVID-19. Those are frequently wash your hands for 20 seconds or more. Don't touch your face with unwashed hands. Stay hydrated with water. A hydrated cell is a healthy cell. Stay home if you're sick, and wear a cloth face covering to protect yourself and loved ones. Our current numbers for today are: we have collected 175,051 samples. We currently have only 270 results pending. We're currently monitoring 8,756 individuals. Our current total cases since the outbreak began is at 14,680, and unfortunately 199 deaths. We do have a total recovered at 7,681, bringing our active cases to 6,796. Skilled nursing facilities in Kings County, they have 311 cases since the outbreak began. They currently have 48 active, 228 recovered, and unfortunately 35 deaths. The state prison outbreak, since the outbreak began, they have had 7,606 cases. That's 1,207 at Corcoran, 3,284 at Avenal State Prison, and 3,115 at SADF. They've collected 100,017 and 93 samples. They currently have 55 results pending. Their active cases are at 1,960. Their recovered cases at 5,224 and 17 deaths, unfortunately. They currently have no inmates hospitalized, and it appears that all these facilities have begun to stabilize at this time. We continue to watch hospital data closely. We are seeing a decrease in medical surge or general admissions, both locally and throughout the region. And the ICU admissions are what I would call stable, meaning that it continues to hover around a consistent number, but it is not decreasing locally. We are seeing a decrease in ICU admissions throughout the region, however. As of yesterday, the local hospital reported 40 COVID patients in med-surg and 6 in the intensive care unit. They did also report that they actually have 44% of their ICU capacity available, which is a welcome sign since it was 0 for such a long time. They did open up and restart holding non-emergent surgeries as a result of the release in the lessening in the COVID strain. We currently are still maintaining 60-day supply of PPE, that's gowns and 95s, gloves, masks, things along those lines for healthcare providers and healthcare facilities. As of yesterday, the Porterville alternate care site patient census was at 5. They are still in discussions about possibly moving this to a warm status as that patient census decreases. The Fresno alternate care site has closed due to no patient census. There were discussions about them opening up as an antibody treatment center, but that has not come to fruition. The mobile testing program site schedule for this week has been published to our website. We continue to hold regularly scheduled follow-up calls with the State Unified Support Team. However, those calls have been, they were once a week. They've been changed to bi-weekly as the case numbers have decreased and the focus is on vaccines. On 2/19/2021, CDPH released the Youth and Recreation Adult Sports Guidance that will go into effect February 26th, as Ms. Campbell mentioned. The guidance applies to all organized youth sports and recreations, including schools and community and sponsored programs, and privately organized clubs and leagues, and adult recreational sports. The guidance does not, however, apply to collegiate professional sports or community events such as marathons, half marathons, and endurance races. The largest takeaway from this guidance is outdoor high-contact sports can be played in the purple or red tier with an adjusted case rate equal to or less than 14 per 100,000, but they do require implementation and strict adherence to informed consent. That means parents have to sign that they understand the risk that the individual is participating in, and they do require testing either antigen or PCR for both participants and coaches weekly for both regular and postseason. If they're competing, the test results need to be made available within 24 hours of play. There are other minute nuances that have to be implemented for certain sports, and that is covered in the guidance as well. Also, the California Department of Public Health did stress that it included rollback clauses and also will be releasing separate guidance for positive tests and when outbreaks occur at a time or a date to be determined. Our numbers for the state metrics that will be published today, our new cases per 100,000 is at 24.1. That's down from 42.1 from our last update, and we continue to see a decline in new cases. However, I also want to warn that we are expecting another spike in this week from Super Bowl Sunday and probably one next week from the last 3-day weekend. Our overall testing positivity at this time is at 6.9%, and our testing positivity in the lowest quartile of the Healthy Places Index is at 6.3%. Those are also considerably down from the last update we provided. This means that our new cases per 100,000 meets the purple tier metric criteria, and both our testing positivity criteria or values meet the red tier criteria. More importantly, both of our testing positivity numbers are getting just about 1 or 2 points away from being meeting the orange tier criteria, and if we are able to meet that and maintain that, we become eligible for the accelerated movement through the blueprint for reopening. Our test per 100,000 is down at 483, which was to be expected as people get vaccinated, our cases decrease, and testing fatigue sets in. We're hoping this will change as the Valencia branch labs sent us a notice that they are looking to expand testing to municipalities. We did hold an ad hoc EOC briefing to provide this information to local jurisdictions, and they did provide us with contacts, which we did share with the Visalia branch, or not, excuse me, not the Visalia, but the Valencia branch lab and the testing task force, who will reach out to those contacts directly. The goal will be to expand this testing to these areas by training municipalities to stand up testing sites locally using local staff and the state's testing systems, that's the Color system and the PerkinElmer lab in Valencia. I will update your board as we learn more. On a vaccine update, vaccine data is being published by the state, and they know it's wrong, and they are publishing it anyways. This is frustrating on a number of levels, especially since this is how they'll be using this data to determine allocations moving forward. We're not sure what that will look like, but we're paying laser-like focus on this item. We, Public Health, continue to focus our vaccine efforts on those over 65 and distributing our allocations of the vaccines equitably. We did have, we do continue to focus our efforts moving through our wait list that we had before as we get ready for the switch to My Turn. I'm going to talk about that a little bit later on. During the week of February 8th through the 14th, we administered, this is Public Health alone, 1,070 vaccines. That's 660 in Hanford. This included a pilot drive-up clinic on Saturday, February 13th. I want to take this opportunity to thank the CAO's office, Public Works, for assisting with coordination and some of the resources, and the Hanford Fire Department, who provided staff to assist with vaccine administration that weekend. That week, we also did vaccinate 130 in Avenel and 280 in Corcoran. Last week, the 15th through the 22nd, we provided 742 vaccines. That's 521 in Hanford, 221 in Corcoran. We did have a second drive-up clinic scheduled for Saturday, February 20th, but we ended up canceling it due to issues with My Turn and the fact that we ran out of vaccines due to the shipping lane closures secondary to bad weather across the nation. Fortunately, we did receive our long-awaited vaccine yesterday. We received our last week allocation of 1,100 Moderna, as well as 1,200 Moderna that was scheduled to be received this week. We also received an additional 1,170 Pfizer this week. Unfortunately, they arrived without any notice. We were told that we would be notified when the shipping lanes had opened up again, but we weren't. They just showed up yesterday morning, but it was a welcome surprise. We continued having discussions with Adventist Health on the vaccine planning. It looks like their allotment of vaccines have increased slightly, and we have agreed to provide them with all of our 1,170 Pfizer vaccines so that we can vaccinate all K through 12 educators. We're planning on this event being held this Sunday, and we have begun communicating this with the schools. As mentioned last week, we're also working on swapping out our testing site at the Day Reporting Center for the OptumServe vaccine site. Also mentioned last week, we learned that these sites were supposed to come with their own vaccines. However, I received a call yesterday morning from the program manager at the California Department of Public Health, and they described a communications issue between OptumServe and the third-party administrator, and the site will not initially come with its own vaccines. They asked if we could provide any vaccine support until the situation was corrected. According to them, our increased allotment mentioned earlier, that's the extra 1,170 of Pfizer, we don't usually get 2,000 or more doses every week, was supposed to be in support of this site. I also received a call from the same organizer last week asking if we would be willing to allow this site to start vaccinating agriculture workers, which we agreed to since we believe that we'll be very close to finishing out the 65 and older population soon. So the plan moving forward is to provide them the 1,200 extra Moderna doses that we have, and then public health will keep our 1,100 doses to finish out the 65 and older population. We, public health, are going to accomplish this by an online appointment system until the state can get the MyTurn application to work correctly. We found a system that suits our needs and is relatively inexpensive, and we can pay month to month, which is good since we will eventually be forced to switch to MyTurn. I would also like to thank County Council for working with us this weekend to review the terms and conditions and HIPAA policies of the software so we can deploy it. On that note, last night we sent out a press release explaining the different systems coming online and how to book appointments for each. We, Public Health again, have the link to the scheduling system on our website, and we also have people standing by our call center for those who cannot access a computer. The number for those who don't have a computer to call is 559-852-2002, and that was also included in that press release. If those folks that don't have access to a computer call that number, we can schedule the appointment for them. Also, the new OptumServe vaccine site will likely be up and running maybe as soon as tomorrow, and since this is a state vaccine site, they will be using MyTurn, which has its inherent flaws, but we cannot control that aspect of their operations. Before this discussion with CDPH regarding vaccine for agriculture workers, we did resume our conversations and planning with the ag representatives about planning. We asked them to send out an interest survey, which they did. We, Environmental Health, also sent out a survey to all restaurants in the county to start collecting the numbers so that we have a better understanding of that planning. We also, all the healthcare all the vaccine administrators in the county have scheduled and start holding regular meetings, as they will also be focusing on these groups as we move forward. Also to that note, last week we were notified that that starting as soon as this week, our federally qualified healthcare centers, or FQHCs, will begin to receive vaccine allocations directly from the feds. We don't have a lot of information on this, and we hope to learn more soon. For our county, this includes RAF, Family Health Care Network, Omni Healthcare, and United Healthcare. According to the information on the federal site and what we've learned so far, they are supposed to follow the state's local vaccine priorities, and the local vaccine priorities, again, as we learn more, we'll share them. Finally, we were supposed to start the transition to the third-party administrator model yesterday. However, we just received the contract and other documents, and the state and the date of transmission is marked as to be decided. We still have so many questions and concerns with this process, but unfortunately this is just going to continue to move forward regardless. I would like to once again thank County Council for starting the review of the contract with this, as this weekend, as the state is usually only give us 5 days to turn all of the required documents in. But this is also a stance that they softened on during a call yesterday. And then as stated, the third-party administrator is supposed to be the one who determines the network of vaccine providers, implements reimbursements, pay for performance, and incentives for equitable distribution of the vaccine, as well as monitor the performance of those providers. However, it's even more unclear now that the FQHCs will soon be receiving vaccines from the feds, how this is all going to work. Also, we don't know if the vaccines received by the feds will have to be followed or monitored through the MyTurn system, so it's kind of confusing at this point. And then also, I just want to add as a reminder, as this transition occurs, public health will become just a vaccine provider by definition, and we will no longer be distributing vaccine to other providers as we've done in the past. Finally, on February 12th, the state again changed the vaccine priorities list and released a new guidance on vaccine distribution priorities. Beginning March 15th, after Phase 1A and Phase 1B Tier 1, healthcare providers may use their clinical judgment to vaccinate individuals 16 to 64 who are deemed to be at very high risk of morbidity and mortality from COVID-19 as a direct result of one or more of the following health conditions: cancer, chronic kidney disease, chronic pulmonary disease, Down syndrome, immunocompromised states, pregnancy, sickle cell, heart conditions, severe obesity, type 2 diabetes. The state also indicated that the eligible list of conditions is subject to change at any time. And then one thing I would like to make clear as I close out my report is, by sheer nature of Kings County and how we are so focused on food and agriculture here, we will be in Phase 1B Tier 1 for quite a long time, and it'll be a while before we're able to move to other tiers. This is another detail of concern that we have shared with the state and the third-party administrator, as they are the ones who have the ability to change who's eligible through the MyTurn application. Our concern is that they will open it up to the other tiers too quickly before we've had an opportunity to vaccinate all of those folks in Phase 1B Tier 1. That concludes my report, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Rebecca, do you have any more?
No, I don't have any more. I would just want to remind your board that I am seeking approval of the letter to Congressman Valadeo.
Yep, very good. Okay, before we move to the letter, questions, comments?
Yes, I have a question for Ed. So look, you say that you're going to start the rollout for vaccinating teachers on Sunday?
Supervisor Raboon, through the chair, that is correct.
And then, so is there a plan in place to do the county employees shortly?
Supervisor Verboen, through the chair, to add clarification to the educator's question, we currently believe we have enough vaccines to vaccinate all the educators in Kings County on that one event. On the question about the county employees and the government center, they were originally in a priority package that has since been changed. It is my understanding, and of course this changes on a regular basis, that after Phase 1B Tier 1 and then the newly inserted priority categories of 16 to 64-year-old with chronic medical conditions, the state is going to switch to a simple age-based system where it's based on age, and there will no longer be a specialty group. That's our understanding currently.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. Supervisor Rowley.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Hill, a couple of things here. Please be patient with me. First of all, I did want to point out the story in the Fresno Bee yesterday that ran where they highlight Kings County, or they called out Kings County for the fact that as we activated the MyTurn app, as you mentioned, Mr. Hill, the glitch in that system allowed people from around the state to come down, to make appointments to come down to Kings County, expect to get those vaccines. That story was also picked up by the Sacramento Bee. It's running this morning on roughandtumble.com. And so, which is a site that the legislators and staff in the Capitol in Sacramento, they read that. So my point is that's going to be buzzing around. And so I wanted to take this opportunity publicly, Mr. Hill, and I know I shared it with you personally, but publicly, the decision you made to not allow those folks to receive those Kings County vaccines. I wanted to say thank you for that. I wanted the public to know and my fellow board members to know that I stand behind you 100% on that decision. You prioritized Kings County residents. You communicated to the state, as I'm aware that the state advised the county not to turn anyone away. So your decision, Mr. Hill, in my opinion, is to be commended for looking out for the residents of Kings County, and the fact that the Board of Supervisors has shown leadership on the issue of vaccines here with the letters to President Biden and to the CEO of CVS. We're fighting like hell to get more vaccines, and the short amount that we had to have people come from some of the bigger cities and people known to be gaming this system and working this app and going to Tulare County and Fresno County and going to get those vaccines when they tried it in Kings. You said no, and I want to thank you for that, Mr. Hill. I also want to just very quickly thank your hardworking staff again. I know the community can be impatient. Who wouldn't be? You know, people want this life-saving vaccine. We're all waiting, including myself. We'll continue to be patient, but I know that your staff is dealing with, some of that frustration, especially on the phones, and so we want to thank them as well. Mr. Hill, so I want to segue that into the fact that it sounds good that we're going to take care of our ag labor force, including farm workers. It sounds good that we're going to have this dedicated site to them. The state's coming to Kings County. We're working OptumServe. Farm workers, ag workers come here. But we already know this is a glaring, gaping hole in the security of those vaccines, because, as you mentioned, we're going to be forced to use the My Turn app. And so, as you also mentioned, that's beyond your control. The state is going to open it up, come to Hanford, ag and labor. But we also know that these same folks from around the state are going to be able to register, come to Kings County, come to Hanford. They're not going to get turned away. And the data that we're going to have to report it, are we really going to be able to say that our ag labor force, the lifeblood of our Kings County economy, our farm workers, that they're getting vaccinated? Can you add to that, Mr. Hill? Thank you. And those comments aren't against you. I know you're working to figure that out, but can we please talk about that? Thank you, Mr. Hill. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Supervisor Valley, through the chair. That is correct. That is one of my concerns. I've shared that with the organizer, that, again, we're very pleased to start vaccinating agriculture at this time. But they confirmed that they will be using My Turn, and I immediately responded and said, you do know that well, currently right now, if you go to register in My Turn and you choose that you're an agriculture worker, it'll say you're not eligible because it is locked on the 65 and older population. So that is something that they need to work on, and they've identified that. The state has also identified that the idea that counties and organizations can't sub-prioritize groups such as agriculture is a huge weakness in that system. So yes, there will be opportunities for others to use that system to get into our well, not our, but the state's OptumServe site, but the state has identified that and working on that. Also, I'd like to take this opportunity to let yourself and the board know that once we have completed the 65 and older population and the educators, which we plan on doing hopefully by the end of this week, that will put the focus of all remaining vaccine on food and ag after that. So the OptumServe site will be one option, but we will also have ARIA, Family Health Care Network, Adventist Health, and ourselves and our vaccine allocations after that to focus on food and ag. Again, we've started that planning process as a group, as well as working with local ag representatives and that interest survey. And there will be more to come. The biggest question always is do we have enough vaccine? We get notice of our upcoming allocations on Mondays and Tuesdays, so we're hoping that we're going to see another 2,000 plus allocation sometime today. And we, again, will hold regular meetings with that group and update your board and the public as soon as possible. I hope that answered your questions.
A little bit, Mr. Chairman, I wanted to ask Mr. Hill if that, is there anything that the board could do to help with that communication to your contacts at the state, which I'm assuming is State Department of Public Health or the governor's office, where we could also weigh in on this situation to back up the concerns that you have, Mr. Hill, as it relates to these vaccines dedicated for food and ag and farm workers that they're actually going to go to them in Kings County. Is there anything you could suggest that we could be helpful on?
Yes, thank you, Supervisor Valley, through the chair. A letter is always welcome, especially in these events where, and I'm not sure if I covered this in my update, but we did a lot of digging and research and pushing after we experienced the glitches with My Turn, and we found out, it was reported to us that it is not a third-party administrator problem. It is not a My Turn problem, but it is a CDPH policy problem. Meaning that they're the ones that are going to have to release the policy because in their viewpoint right now, if you can get on the system and get vaccinated, that's what they want to see regardless of where you get vaccinated. They're not sure that it is a good idea to limit it to county of residence at this point. There's strong opposition to that mindset as vaccines still remain limited. As vaccines become widely available, that may make sense, but right now it doesn't. So I would recommend or ask that your board consider drafting another letter like you've done in the past, fighting for that vaccines remain in the counties until vaccines are widely available. I also know that CSAC is engaged on this issue. They will likely be generating a letter as well. Our county health administrators is also engaged on this level, and we are holding regular discussions and will be issuing recommendations. But yes, a letter would be most helpful.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Can I put that before the board as something we could take up before we leave this agenda item, Mr. Chair? And again, I agree with that. I'm supportive of that, especially in light of the fact that our county is getting called out and, you know, a major media market like the Sacramento Bee in front of all the Assembly, the Senate members, in my opinion, to try to make us look bad, turning people away, not offering them the vaccine. That's not fair to the county. It's not fair to our public health director or his hardworking staff. I'd like to put that before the board today as well, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I think in having discussions with CSAC as well and the exec committee, there are numerous, well, it was throughout the system that this issue occurred with allowing outside, it wasn't just Kings County, that allowed or for people from outside the area to sign up. And that, so I know the administration's well aware of that. And while we've been called out, you know, it's a quick chat will change that. But with respect to that, so from a consensus standpoint, is that something that the board wishes to do with Supervisor Valley's request for the letter?
I know that the people I've talked to that have gone out of Kings County to get vaccines in Fresno and Tulare, they've been turned around. They waited for hours, and then I know Tulare County had a clinic the other day, and they had turned away over 1,000 people that were not residents of Tulare County. So it's just not Kings County. I mean, we're all trying to get vaccinated here. So I don't know where the media think they got to call us out. I know I got a couple phone calls to do a television interview on Friday, and I'm like, well, I didn't know enough going on to give an interview, but I think it's we just all have to have patience and get along with it. As far as adding it to the letter for Supervisor Valley, I don't have a problem with that. Anything we do to get attention. I know I had a phone call with the 9 counties call with all the counties talking to the governor's office on Thursday, and the biggest complaint was the fact that we don't have enough vaccines. We don't know when we're getting it, and the fact that the media, the government releases facts to the media before they release it to the local governmental agencies, makes us look like a bunch of idiots. Like we don't know what we're doing, and we don't know what we're doing because they don't know what they're doing, so they're dumping it in our lap. And generally, these information deals come out on a Friday afternoon, and we got to deal with it all weekend. We're getting phone calls from our constituents saying we're not doing a good enough job and so much better everywhere else. And we all asked, all 9 counties asked, please do not give any press releases until you talk to local agencies giving the vaccine. So we're all on the same page. We're all having the same problem. We just need more vaccines and time and patience. So that's all I got.
Yeah. So
Yeah, and I think, Mr. Chair, I think to be able to focus on the region's needs first, but I don't know, we are all the state of California, but I think we do need to prioritize our local populations, our local economies first. And so any kind of language that follows that, I think would be most appreciative. But again, I don't have a problem, if we had enough dosage to be able to administer vaccine, to everyone if we had enough vaccine, but we're just not into that position.
yeah, I also had, I was reached out to by a lady by the name of Miss Carrie West, and she's the COVID-19 task force, government relations task force. And I had about an hour-long chat with her, and just, they're reaching out, trying to understand the issues. And so we had a good discussion about my turn and the challenges that we're going to face in trying to get, our farm worker population vaccinated and the timelines that it may take. And so, just in another vein of direct contact with, those that are in a leadership position here and able to relay those or that information. So, so by consensus, I think I see acknowledgement of Supervisor Valley's request, and then with that, we'll go back to the. Do we need a motion to do that?
I'm sorry to interrupt, but can you get clarification on the consensus? Does the board need that letter to come back after it's drafted, or is the chair authorized to sign it once it's developed?
Yeah, really, it needs to go out, Mr. Chair. Needs to go out sooner, because that My Turn app is going to go on live, and it probably needs to go out sooner than later, because a week will make an extreme difference if we don't prioritize our local population. Right? So, and again, this vaccine is a little bit unique in that it does have a shelf life, but I think we have more than enough demand locally to absorb that supply. So I guess the language would be to prioritize local populations, local needs before any external.
Yeah, I think between administration and Director Hill, we should be able to accomplish that pretty quickly. So we'll go ahead and ask you to complete that and get it out as soon as possible. And then we'll move back to the recommended letter on the federal funding requests.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I do have two observations. I think the letter's a little bit short. Number one, it talks a lot about other safety net costs, but I think one of them is behavioral health or mental health. And I would like to see mental health brought a little bit more to the attention in that letter. I think if you talk to educators, mental health and academic health are two main issues of students today, from all ranges, from kindergarten to community college. So I would like to see some kind of language in there, and maybe Dr. Lisa Lewis can help with that, with the mental health language. And then the second one is a little bit short as well, in that counties and cities have received funds, but special districts have not, have somewhat been shortchanged in the COVID response. And so I kind of like to see a little bit more on special districts, the Armona, Home Gardens, Stratford, and Kettleman City. The governor has said you don't have to pay your rent, you can't be evicted. Some people aren't able to pay their water bills either, and so these community districts are being somewhat shortchanged in the ability to collect utility bills. And so at some point, I think we probably need to bring that to the attention, because again, cities and counties have been somewhat, I don't want to say fully taken care of, but they've been acknowledged. I think the unacknowledged level of local government of special districts, especially in utility districts, has been somewhat shortchanged. And so I think, and I'm sure that you can get a hold of Home Gardens, Armona, Stratford, and Kettleman City and find out what their deficiency in collecting. Wintertime is always difficult anyway. A lot of people are underemployed or unemployed, and so bills have a tendency to get a little bit behind in that January, February, March timeframe. But I think the deficiency rates are running a little bit higher than normal. So if we could acknowledge the special districts, community districts, however you want to phrase that, as well as part of the relief effort.
Yep. Yeah, no, I know we work closely with the our federal lobbyists on this letter, and they helped to draft it. And while I have no problem adding that into it, I think the across the nation, this thing is driven by the administration, and but it doesn't hurt to ask as well. So,
is this over in Corcoran? Yeah. You know about it? I know about it. We already investigated it.
Okay,
word on the street.
I will take that feedback and get the letter out as soon as possible.
okay, very good. And we can do that by consensus as well, I imagine. Okay, very good.
Mr.
All right,
Chairman,
thank you all.
I'm sorry.
Supervisor Raleigh.
Yeah, Chairman, could I add one? I'm very supportive of Sue Nev's comments. Thank you for looking out for those community service districts. Mr. Chairman, does the board see a need to add some CCs to this letter? I see the draft anyways before us today. It was just to Congressman Valadale. Is there any other representatives over there or any other groups that we could copy on this letter to push for more leverage as we usually do?
Yeah, I see no problem in, our senators and whoever the appropriate individuals are and sharing that letter with anybody and everybody.
Yes, thank you for that. We can work with our federal lobbyist and work to add on the CCs.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yep, very good. Further questions on this item? Seeing none, we'll move on to our next item, which is item 6A, public forum. And Rebecca and Kyria have this one.
Yes. Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Kyria Martinez, Assistant County Administrative Officer. So this is an annual item staff presents as a requirement under Assembly Bill 2792, the Transparent Review of Unjust Transfers and Holds, which is the Truth Act. This law requires local enforcement officials to inform immigrants of their right to refuse interviews with United States federal authorities while incarcerated. Beginning in January of 2018, the local governing body of any county or city, in your case, your board, in which a local law enforcement agency has provided ICE with access to individuals during the last year shall hold at least one community forum during the following year. This forum must be open to the public in an accessible location with at least a 30-day notice. A public notice for this meeting was published in the Hanford Sentinel on January 22nd, 2021. And at this time, I will share my screen and Sheriff Dave Robinson will speak on the data.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Dave Robinson, Kings County Sheriff. And so I won't take much of your time today because I know we've done this now for about 3 years. So we still do cooperate with ICE and we work with them, but we do it within the confines of the current law in California. And so when you look at the inmates that we did communicate with ICE on, it looks like there's about 12 or 13 of them. And just to kind of highlight the typical charges that they want to pick up on. Child molestation, a couple of inmates, witness intimidation, bringing drugs into a jail facility or prison facility, assault with a deadly weapon. Looks like there's 3 domestic violence and a rape. And so those are the types of cases that we're still working and communicating with ICE on. And so annually now we report that January of each year to the Department of Justice so they can see which inmates we did coordinate cooperation on for them to come pick up from our facility. So That's all in front of you there. And if anybody has any questions, I'll be glad to answer.
Great. I see no questions at this time. We need to receive public comment on this. Okay. So at this time, we'll go to public comment. And do we have any requests for public comment?
I do not have any written or anyone online that would like to comment.
Okay, very good. Thank you. So is this an action item or it's just simply a public awareness forum and
Because it is a legally required report and forum, it would be good if the board would memorialize that it has received the report and finds it to be acceptable.
Okay, so with that, we will close the public forum and bring it back to the board for action on this item.
I'll make a motion to accept as presented.
Good. We have a motion and second to accept. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Joe Nevs,
Yes.
Richard Valley,
Aye.
Doug Verboon,
Yes.
Craig Peterson,
Aye.
Richard Fagundes.
Yes.
Very good. We have 5 in favor. Thank you. And we'll move on to item 7, which is a study session. And again, Rebecca and Julia.
Good morning, board members. Kyria Martinez, again, Assistant County Administrative Officer. So this is a study session, and it's centered on the Kings County 2021 state and federal legislative platform. These topics have immediate and lasting impacts to the county, to the health and safety of our residents, and to a variety of constituents who are relying upon local government effectiveness and representation to yield best outcomes for local, state, federal, and global economies we influence. As part of the process, staff met with department heads from December through January to get a better understanding of their legislative updates and requests. We do have a state legislative advocate, the CRISCOM company, and we have our federal advocates, Paragon Government Relations. Many of the items presented today are activities from last year. As there is still work to be completed, I will briefly identify some of the requests. The larger detail is in the legislative platform in your agenda packets. And today we are presenting this in a study session form, and we will bring back the agenda item for action next week. So I'll go ahead and start the slide.
Kyria, thank you for that introduction. Oh, there you go. I was going to ask you to put it full screen, and so it looks good on our end. I also wanted to tell the board that this year was a little different. We had our state lobbying advocates, CRISCOM, and we set up meetings, and they were present at all the meetings that we sat down with our department heads to go over all of the issues. Chuck Jaloyan was there, and also Jason Segan. So I want to thank them for being proactive during this process and helping us to write the state platform. And then I want to thank Paragon for helping us with the federal platform. And so I'll turn it back over to Kyria so she can start diving into the issues.
Okay, so we'll go ahead and start with the state priorities first. So the 2021 county top priorities are listed in the platform, and we identified COVID-19 response and recovery as number 1, with the health and welfare as number 2, and water, natural resources, and agriculture as 3. The local health departments continues to be the front lines of the response to the COVID-19 pandemic. This includes ensuring adequate testing, contact tracing, isolation, and quarantine capacity, and measures to protect their communities. So we advocate for local health departments to be provided sufficient funding to carry out these responsibilities and be engaged in developing state order guidance and plans. So in public health, we oppose changes that shift health realignment funds to other programs to ensure Kings County support strategies to streamline funding and program complexities of the California Children's Services, support legislation that maintains or improves funding for counties to address and health prevention needs of women, children, adolescents, and families, support continued funding for the Supplemental Nutrition Program for Women's, Infant, and Children, the WIC, for behavioral health, enhance board and care rates to prevent further loss of critical housing for clients with serious mental health illnesses, fund pretrial mental health diversion, and support legislation that would enhance suicide prevention within Kings County. For human services, we have support legislative and budget proposals that enhance local counties, the ability to provide safe and healthy housing, services for homeless and at-risk population, support increased funding for the CalWORK single allocation, support efforts to increase and stabilize funding for our senior programs, support efforts to increase state portion of extended foster care program, and support legislative cleanup, reform, and allocation for additional funding of continuum of care reform. The CCR program changes are intended to provide services to foster care youth at the lowest level of placement. Kings County currently has 515 children and youth in the child welfare system. We move on to water and natural resources and agriculture. Find solutions for dealing with water shortages. The county will advocate for legislation that streamlines the permitting processes for storage projects. The county will advocate for statewide policy changes that will facilitate groundwater storage and banking projects to meet local needs to replenish depleted groundwater aquifers. The county will support legislative efforts to implement adaptive management of delta pumping to maximize surface water deliveries in time of excess. Seek legislative support to reestablish Williamson Act subvention funds for counties with white area under SGMA and explore the possibility of using cap and trade funding to cover the ongoing costs. In public safety, the sheriff provide new resources on sustaining and funding local gang preventions and enforcement activities. Support legislation that provides funding for local public safety programming, including community-oriented policing, the cops for school resource deputies in rural counties. Provide growth funding for base court fund security funding. Oppose any efforts by the California Veterinary Medical Board in establishing new shelter medicine obligations on California counties. Next, we have the district attorney support any legislation that will clean up Proposition 57 regulations to reflect what the law is intended to do. Support legislation and increase funding for mental health drug diversion. Advocate for funding and construction of the Kings County Family Justice Center. Support legislation that would allow local governments to charge requesting parties for reimbursement of staff time involved in fulfilling Public Records Request Act.
Yes, and I want to thank the District Attorney Keith Fagundes for the tour he gave on the Family Justice Center project. This is a goal of the District Attorney's Office to bring victim services and other services under one house. The tour was very well done, and you know, looking at the state budget and also the federal budget, there is some talk of bringing federal earmarks back. So that is one thing that we want to look at and see how this project could tie into some of those funding opportunities. I did want to mention that. But on the federal side, we'll get to that. There is a lot of talk about earmarks in the transportation, specifically roads as well. So we're going to look at all opportunities for the district attorney and see how we can help him with this goal and to improve these programs.
Okay, thank you. Next, we have fire. Support any legislation that would streamline procedures across multiple or oversight agencies to help with reporting procedures. Support legislation that provides funding, including grant opportunities, which target prevention, response, and recovery efforts for disasters. For the inmate, for a jail, we support legislation that would allow a court to require the appearance of defendant held in any state, county, or local facility with county on felony or misdemeanor charges to be conducted by two-way audio video communication between the defendant and the courtroom in lieu of physical presence. Support funding to implement the transparent review of unjust transfer and hold act, which we had today. Support legislation that expands Medi-Cal eligibility for adults and juvenile inmates. Support expansion of opportunities for in-jail-based competency restoration programs. For probation, expand the use of restorative justice programming as part of individualized treatment and rehabilitation plans to reduce further victimization. Support legislation to raise the age of juvenile courts jurisdiction to 20. Support legislative efforts to provide reentry support and services proven to enhance outcomes. Oppose any legislation that would eliminate probation adult fees, as these funds are necessary to assist in continuing programs. For the assessor, we have support the issuance of clarifying language to recently passed Prop 19, the Home Protection for Senior Seniors, Severely Disabled Families, and Victims of Wildfire and Natural Disaster Act. Current language is vague and does not establish a cohesive set of parameters for implementation. Child Support Services, support legislation that improves the effectiveness of child support program in establishing, enforcing, and collecting child support orders. For community development, we have support direct allocation of the Community Development Block Grant, CDBG funds, and home investment partnerships, funds to Kings County, support state funding efforts for the increasingly complex general plan update and processes. For Economic Development Job Training Office, support efforts to recruit healthcare workers to the Central Valley and Kings County, support and push for enterprise zone equivalent to assist smaller counties, support legislation and funding programs that will increase and expand job training opportunities within the county. For libraries, support the efforts to seek support for infrastructure needs of California public library facilities, and public guardians support and increase spending on public guardian programs. Next, we'll move on to Public Works. Engage Cal Recycle and Air Resource Board process for implementing AB 1826 and SB 1383, which includes an organic management program in California. In transportation, explore road user charge policy options, protect state transportation funding and promote streamlining, elevate State Route 198 priority into the state strategic plan. It is a considered part of our state transportation system. Support funding for the widening of State Routes 33, 41, 43 in order to accommodate the growing needs of transportation. For Veterans Service, support to educate the governor's office and legislature on the importance and values of the county's Veterans Service offices. Support legislation that would focus on getting homeless veterans off the street and into housing. Support legislation that would continue to support expansion of veterans treatment support. For capital projects, support legislative efforts which would reduce the voter approval requirement for local taxes and bonds from a 2/3 vote to 55%. For county council, support any future relief legislation coming directly from the federal government to the county bypassing the state. Support proposals to mitigate the effects of joint several liabilities upon public entities. In elections, support legislation that would lead to direct allocation of funding in order to increase the ability and resources to ensure that voters are able to safely participate in elections during the pandemic. For finance, oppose any deferred payments to the state, from the state to the county. Support legislation in which is designed to ensure taxes and fees collected in the state highway account are used to repair the state's streets, highways, and roads. In high-speed rail, continue to work with the high-speed rail authority to construct and deploy all HSR projects in Kings County. Advocate for the highest safety standards in the transportation industry. For human resources, support additional dollars from the state to assist county resources departments with addressing new regulations due to the COVID-19 pandemic. In IT, information technology, support any additional funding for pandemic-related expenses, including work from home, broadband expansion, and security risk. For video recording and retention, amend Government Code Section 26202.6, which governs the retention of video recordings that are made for routine monitoring purposes so that recordings are only needed to be retained 60 to 90 days. Okay, and at this time, we'll go ahead and move over to the 2021 federal legislative priorities, which are a little less than the state priorities. So we'll start off with California drought. Provide long-term meaningful solutions to California's complex water management challenges. Support reauthorizing the water infrastructure improvements for the Nations Act, which is set to expire in 2021. For water, support efforts to enhance existing and construct new surface water storage facilities within the state. Support efforts to amend the Endangered Species Act and other environmental laws in a manner that will increase the allocation to Central Valley Project water contractors and oppose any legislation that negatively impacts such allocations. Fee to trust reform support federal legislation as well as regulatory changes in the current fee to trust process that would provide an incentive for counties and tribes to enter into enforceable agreements when tribes are permitted. Public safety, support legislation and or administrative action that ensures any political subdivision that is determined not to be in compliance with terms of federal immigration law. Support legislation and appropriation for county efforts directed at programs that recognize the extent of gang and narcotics program in the county. Support legislation that would restore Medicaid benefits to inmates for a 30-day period prior to their release from a public institution such as a jail. For telecommunications, support funding for first responder infrastructure upgrades and or repairs such as repeater site restoration and upgrades. Support funding for the U.S. Department of Agriculture to provide reliable and affordable high-speed internet connectivity. For human services, support efforts to reform child welfare financing, including expanding the types of prevention activities eligible for the foster care financial match. Oppose efforts to reduce or block grant federal funding for Medicaid, Medi-Cal administration or benefits, including efforts to place a per capita cap on funding. For child support child support as a social safety net for children and parents by providing adequate funding to local child support services program. For health, we have ensure that any potential reforms of health and welfare entitlement programs do not shift additional cost burdens from the federal government to state or counties. Oppose efforts to reduce state and federal funding streams, which would shift cost to local health departments. Oppose converting the federal Medicaid program into a block grant. Transportation, support the creation of Highway Trust Fund Commission to determine a new funding mechanism for transportation project. Support legislation to maintain flexibility and authority for metropolitan planning organizations, MPOs. Support the reauthorization of federal transportation bill, advocating for backfill of loss of local transportation fuel tax revenues due to COVID-19. And for library services, continue federal support for grants funding from the Institute of Museum and Library Services. So at this time, this concludes my presentation. At this time, I would like to ask the board if you have any questions, comments, any requested changes. And we also have Chris come on the line if you wanted to ask any questions on the state platform. And thank you all. I want to say a thank you to all department heads who met with us and sat with us through those meetings and kind of, went over their items.
Okay, very good. Thank you, Carrie. Closing comments, Rebecca, anything? Okay, we'll bring this back to the board at this time for discussion. Any additions or changes?
Mr. Chair, and I never thought of it before. Many of the rural areas still rely on the post office for service, and I don't know how much security is needed in the rural mailboxes and stuff, and I don't even know how that language would fill in too, but to the sheriff's department, I'm not sure if mail theft is that, and destruction of those mailboxes, but maybe just kind of do some outreach to some of the more rural post office delivery, since, and I've been bad for that. Focused a lot on the digital means of transportation of transportation of data, but there's still a lot of people that still rely on the U.S. Postal Service to be able to pay their bills and get their information. And so I'm wondering if maybe we shouldn't try to work with that organization to try to enhance its service. I know it comes under a lot of heat from time to time, and they've had increases in mail delivery costs and stuff, but I just don't know what it would take to set up some kind of a more secure, better mail delivery system. And I don't know what role as the county would play in that. But I think, and I've always thought, county roads, some of our priorities should be on mail routes, school bus routes, and some of the other transportation arteries that things are delivered on, and not just mileage. But try to come up with some kind of a support for the United States Parcel Service, and Amazon and everybody else is delivering just more and more packages all of
7 days a week.
all of the time. Holidays, it doesn't matter, you know, and so I don't know if you want to try to incorporate that into some kind of parcel, because between Amazon, I've seen a lot more of the, what's the yellow ones? DHL. Yeah, and then of course the UPS and the United States Parcel Service, but some kind of language that supports the transportation of that, because as people are quarantined at home, they're just buying more stuff online, and I'm not sure you're going to get those habits turned around when COVID goes away, because it's just very handy, and so to be able to secure and I've noticed Chevron and Lemoore and several businesses now have Amazon drop-off points where you drop off and then you go in there, I guess, with a PIN number and pick it up.
That's if you don't want your wife to find out.
Exactly. So I don't know how, I don't have in my mind what kind of language, but some kind of support of the parcel delivery system, and whether it's United States Parcel Service or UPS or Federal Express or whoever delivers products.
We can certainly work with our federal lobbyist and research the opportunities within the federal budget and see if there's been any discussion on that point.
Yeah,
We can certainly do that.
Mr. Chair, I think it's also part to do with the sheriff's department, because vandalism and the thievery of people selling stuff off the porch. I've been hit numerous times over the last 20 years, and people stealing your mail. It's up to me to get it out of the box before the sun goes down, because at night the crazies are out and going through your mailboxes and stuff. So if we can have some language in there that helps support our local sheriff's office to prosecute these people that are vandalizing their mailboxes at night, because they're just going out there and just raising havoc. And they catch them every now and then, but there's not much they can do with them. So.
No, and you bring up a good point about the porch pirates, and so, you know, do a little something more, you know, in that arena, because sometimes they steal medication, sometimes it's yarn, but sometimes it's medication, sometimes it's expensive parts. You know, I think that's the problem. They're stealing it, but they don't know what they're stealing. They're just stealing to be stealing, and that maybe they should all be treated like felonies and not misdemeanors, depending on the. And I don't even know how that works, Sheriff. Is it like the porch pirates that steal off your front porch? Yeah, and maybe we should change that and make it all felonies, because in that way, you know, because right now they're running the risk, and they don't know if it's medication or parts, and it's like buying a $5 grab bag at, you know, Staples. But you don't know what you're getting. But maybe they should be held to a higher accountability, because if it was all treated like felonies, maybe they wouldn't be stealing that stuff. So.
It is a big problem. I know personally, I've been hit probably 3 times.
Yeah.
They get the cylinder key to those community mailboxes in the cities, and I know they've been going around. And these are criminals that are maybe not local. They could be coming from other areas, and you know, it's unfortunate. It's just a difficult problem that the post office has to deal with.
Yeah, maybe we should just support legislation to make them all felonies.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's just something simple as that. You know, it might be hard to prosecute, because I tell you what, the judges and the district attorney is probably not going to want to, you know, for $15 worth of yarn. But unfortunately, you know, that person taking that package off the porch doesn't know what's in it, and you know, so I think we probably should go to the highest and best use, and that's treat them all as a felony.
Okay, we'll look into the issue.
Thank you.
Sure. So on one issue, Kyria, on the federal side, I know that we've been working with KCAG, and I'm on the Amtrak San Joaquin board. There's some money being put out there right now for the Stockton Y, which is interchange with two railroads that meet in Stockton. And I'd like to support that from the county standpoint. It doesn't really affect us directly, but it does affect us when the trains are plugged up downtown Hanford, getting them moved through Stockton. It's a big holdup. So I know our lobbyists were talking to our federal congressman on Thursday, and so he called me, wanted to know what we thought about that. I said, no, we support it, but it should be on our platform as well. So the Stockton Y, and it's the Amtrak Penalty and Santa Fe Railroad. So I think we can support that as well.
Yeah, because that's both passenger and so that probably should be as part of the transportation.
I think KCAG says support it, but I think it should be supported as well.
Okay.
Thank you. Supervisor Valley.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to thank Chriscom Company and county staff for a very nice presentation here. This looks like a good slice of opinions and input from our department heads and the folks who are out there day to day dealing with what these laws and current policies really mean and how it affects everyday people in Kings County. That being said, on the federal side, for the purpose of my question, under community development, the second paragraph, could we get a little explanation on what that first sentence means, where it says support legislation and funding opportunities that would allow flexible use of the CDBG program income? I'd like to know about that, Mr. Chairman, what we're trying to get here with that.
Greg?
We would request that Mr. Gatsko come on and see if he can talk about that.
Sure. If I remember correctly on the language, if we could have it popped up there, our primary concern really was the flexibility to use CDBG for community projects and things, because what we're always faced with is the state will change the rules on us midway through an application process or after we've been awarded, which really compromises our awards to actually almost have to pay it back to the state if it's not done correctly. The other challenge we've always had is that these are actually federal funds that come through the state, and we're a non-entitled county, which means we have to apply for it. So we've never had an entitlement. We've never had a guarantee of funding. We always have to put a lot of effort to make applications and then make sure that we're meeting all the compliance. So in reality, the priority there is just to make sure that we've got good, sound guidelines that we're working from. We have the flexibility to use it for projects in the community, and then we have a little bit more guarantee on the funding coming to Kings County. So that's really the intent. But I'm not sure if I can see the language up there. It might whether it should reflect that perspective.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Gatsko. I'm satisfied with that. I wanted to make sure we weren't putting in language that dilutes the vision of the program. As we know, we have too many communities like Stratford, Armona, and Kettleman that, these CDBG grant funds, as competitive as they are, they're such a blessing when we use them for infrastructure. And so I've been vocal that, I believe from time to time the county uses these funds in other areas that aren't making an impact in the communities, as I believe these funds are intended for, like curb, gutter, sidewalk, these housing rehabilitation programs, versus covering other costs that the county can cover elsewhere for other purchases. So that was concerning. Thank you for clearing that up and allowing me the time, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Okay, very good. Any other requests, discussions, conversations? Yes, from our state lobbyist.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Jason Segan here with Chriscom Company. I just wanted to say hello, take this opportunity and say hi. And also Chuck Chaloyan and Carol Sarian are on the phone as well. And just wanted to compliment your staff. It was great to get to know each one of the department heads
a little more and work with Kyria and Rebecca on putting this together. It's an important document, and we're privileged to be part of the team that put that together. Chuck, are you on? I know you wanted to say hello too. Might be on mute. Okay. Well, thank you guys. And for Chuck, I'll say thank you as well, and for Carol. And we're here whenever we have weekly meetings with Rebecca and Kyria, updating the state issues, and anything you guys need from us. You have all our contact information. Thanks so much.
Okay, very good. Thank you. So I guess we need to formally approve this study
So
session.
at this time, it's a study
Okay,
session.
sorry. Yep, got it. Right. Yep.
We'll bring it back.
Okay, thank you. All right, we'll move on to item B, another study session from the Community Development Agency.
Good morning, Chairman, members of the board. Greg Gatzka, Community Development Agency Director, here to give you a study session on the CDBG coronavirus response round number 2 and round number 3 application process that's been made available by the state. We are looking for board's direction on whether to apply for these funds. And Kings County is eligible for up to almost $500,000. It's $498,890 in funding. The original timeline and the reason why community development didn't look to apply for it is because the original timeline was from February 12th to March 26th and was divided up into basically 5 different categories that included public service projects, public facility projects, economic development, housing, and then home key projects. And it really made it very complex and cumbersome to try to figure out what we would be eligible for and the timing to actually even submit an application. However, state is notorious for this, especially recently. They have now changed the scope of how this application works. They have grouped all 5 of those categories together into one application period, and they've extended the deadline now. So the deadline is May 7th of this year. So we do have time to consider it. The thing is that I have to bring to your attention that there are some challenges that we would have in applying for this funding. Right now, in all honesty, planning staff is already pretty much at full capacity with grant applications. We currently have 5 grants that we currently are administering when we normally only do about 1 or 2 a year. And those 5 total about $2.5 million in grants right now that we have in the hopper. The second part is that in order to go forward with any of these types of applications, there's likely to be costs associated with hiring consultants that would have to be necessary for part of that process, as well as committing other departments in that procurement process, including Public Works. The third one, and this is a challenge, actually part of what we were just mentioning on the legislative platform, the state is notorious for requiring that we pay and use all of our program income before we're eligible for another application. So in a nutshell, I'll share with you our program income that we generate from other project applicants paying the county back for certain things like first-time home buyers loan or rehab or things of that nature. That's the program income that the county receives back. We are able to use that for other projects, CDBG-related projects down the road. The state will require us to have to use that up front, and so that becomes a challenge when we'll have to actually expedite the use of that funding rather than grouping it with our annual CDBG application process. So I need to make sure I'm advising you on that part. So with that, and given the deadlines, we do have a full list of all the types of program and project activities that are eligible on your agenda item, but we are looking for your board's direction. If you decide to direct community development to apply for this, our recommendation would be that we come back to you on March 9th for a public hearing so that you can receive public testimony on possible projects or possible funding avenues of activities. and then we will follow through on the direction that your board gives us from that point. So that concludes my presentation. If you have any questions, I'm here to answer them. I also have Chuck Kinney available if you have more detailed questions on CDBG applications, but we are looking for your board's direction. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Greg. So questions, comments from the board with respect to this item?
So Greg, are you looking to ask for more help to get this done, or?
We haven't identified project, right?
That's a bit of a challenge. CDBG application processes and all the reporting that go along with it, it really is a very specialized field. I will share with all of you, I am not even fully up to speed on that process. So it really comes down to Chuck Kinney in my office, who is really the lead on all that compliance to make sure that we don't falter with the state. There is a 55-year requirement for reporting on this one. So it is another major obligation for our staff that we can't easily contract out. There are some possibilities to contract with staff, but we're finding some of the staff resources are very limited right now too out there, because the state's pouring this money out so fast that everybody's already scooping up the experienced CDBG qualified consultants. So that has been a little bit of a challenge. We would most likely have to take that extra responsibility on internally for the application process. The consultants would then most likely be the other related activities, assuming it's a construction-related one, where we'd have to hire somebody to monitor the prevailing wage, the architect, the contractor, and then the construction management. So those would be down the road if it is a construction-related project. But this would be something that we would have to assume for the application. We would have to take that on as a staff responsibility.
Thank you.
Yep. Did you have questions, Supervisor Riley?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. If I'm understanding this right, I just want to confirm with Mr. Gatska. Out of the 5 outlined areas of eligible activities in the staff report, is any one of those 5, just give the board a heads up, is any one of those 5 fiscally easier for the county to apply for, as you just noted out again in your document, that if the board were to choose to go after an application that involves construction, then you outline that those would be higher costs that would burden the county. But is there anything out of the 5 here that seems like low-hanging fruit for the board to go after? That's my question.
Yeah, so anything that would be an existing service that is directly tied to COVID or COVID response would be, if we already have an existing system or an existing service that's providing support to the community, support to the businesses, those are fairly easy to apply, because we're already basically applying for the money and then handing it over to an established county function that's already performing that. But that, again, that begs the question as to whether that department or that agency within the county has the capacity to take on another project too. But those would be easier to manage. Once we get into the construction-related type activities, that carries with it a whole host of other contractors and responsibilities that are much more intensive.
Thank you. And Mr. Chair, I know that we still got to give folks, if the board says approves to bring this back, we got to give folks the opportunity to apply. But is it okay to ask the question right now, for the purpose of being prepared, that as Mr. Gatska mentioned, it is easier if we do something that's already existent. So in the case where we work with Lance Lippincott and his hardworking team, where we have the funds to help our businesses in Kings County with grants, could we at least ask the question right now to Mr. Lippincott if he has the ability, staff-wise, the resources, that if the board were to go down the road, would he be able to do another program with this amount of money? if the board were to be awarded this money?
Yeah, Supervisor Valley, I think I'm getting the yank sign from from county
Okay.
council on that question and
Okay.
in the study sign, but I'll let her maybe
Can I
fine
know
on
that's
that.
understandable. I'll take that on surface. Can I ask, Mr. Chairman, for direction from staff if under public services or under economic development, I think it'd be under public services, would a program within the county be eligible within these funds? I'm hearing some of the counties, Mr. Chair, in the hard hit areas and the poorer rural parts of different counties, they're being successful in getting funding where the county could dedicate resources to help with the enormous amount of funerals that are occurring within the county, especially in the poorer populations and the hardest hit ethnic groups who are passing away from COVID. And sounds like the counties are getting funding to at least assist with $1,000 toward a funeral or toward a cremation, not funding the whole funeral, but at least helping. Are these funds eligible for a program such as that? Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Yes.
Mr. Chair, just to clarify Supervisor Valley's question, Supervisor Valley, are you interested in knowing whether that could be considered during the public hearing, or are you projecting that that is a program that you would like to support? Because the latter would not be permissible
It's
at
the
this
first
time.
one. No, it's
Very
the first
good,
one.
sir.
It's
Thank you.
general information. Thank you.
Mr. Gatzka or Chuck?
Yep.
Chuck Kinney with
If
Kings
Chuck
County
may have
Community Development
some-
Agency.
Oh, go ahead, Chuck.
No, funeral services are not something that is currently listed under CDBG.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I'm done.
Okay. All right. Well, this was a study session and so it doesn't require any action. Did you have another question?
No, I'll make a motion that bring it back and see where we go with it. Work night, right?
Yeah, and Mr. Chair, just on the first one, the public services response, short-term assistance payments. Greg or Chuck, do we have the infrastructure that could be able to support that part? Or are we talking about a different department or a different method of doing that?
This is Chuck Kinney. With the COVID-1 round of funding, your board authorized the application for subsistence payments. We've been told by the state that we were awarded that. We have yet to get the standard agreement. Once we get the standard agreement, we are going to do a RFP for having a consultant come on board to be able to provide those services. And if you were to direct that the round 2 and 3 application go for the same, it's possible to combine all of that into one RFP.
Okay, yeah, and I would just suggest that the language be able to extend that should multiple rounds come about, because I don't want to have to go through that process in each subsequent round.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And then just a general question with respect to the 500,000. I mean, are we able to recoup out of that grant the cost of administration? And by the time we get the cost of administration and if we use a consultant, now we're probably getting to where that money is not very impactful. But could you just address that?
Yes, Chuck Kinney again. If we're using a consultant, the administrative funds that are available would be going to the consultant.
And again, that comes out of the grant.
Correct.
Yeah.
That's probably minimum 50,000 right there.
Yeah. Yeah, I just think, I don't want to, we've heard that the staff is challenged right now. And by the time we get to the point where we're going to, draw some money. Is it going to be meaningful money, or is it not worth the time? Is be my only question with that respect. And I've been informed that we don't need a motion on this. We just do by consensus. So again, I'll bring it back to the board and maybe a head nod as a consensus to bring it back. Yes. Okay. So I'm seeing we have consensus on that item. All right. We will move to item 8A, which is Community Development Agency, and Greg, and again on this item. So Greg, this is a public hearing. Please go ahead.
I'm going to turn that one over to Knut, who's ready to give you the presentation.
Okay, very good.
Thank you, Greg. Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Chairman, members of the board. Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am. Please continue.
Awesome. Okay, as you may know, my name is Kanuni Yang. I am one of the county planners here at Community Development, and I am here today in regards to the 5-year review of the county-wide integrated waste management plan. The Kings County Integrated Waste Management Plan was adopted in April 1995. State Law PRC Sections 41770 and 41882 and Title 14 of the CCR Section 18788 requires that each county-wide integrated waste management plan and elements thereof shall be reviewed, revised, if necessary, and submitted to the Department of Resource Recycling and Recovery, CalRecycle, every 5 years. The attached draft report that you guys have would be the 4th 5-year review report submitted to the state since its adoption in 1995. Planning staff was advised by CalRecycle to use the updated CalRecycle 5-year CIWMP review report template for preparing the 5-year review report. The CalRecycle website also provides many figures and data, including within this report. The information in the report indicates that sufficient landfill capacity is available and or is planned to be made available to cover disposal needs over the next 15 years. In addition, the source reduction, recycling, and composting programs continue to meet approvals towards meeting state required diversion requirements. No significant changes have occurred that would necessitate a revision of the plan. The draft report was provided to the local task force for consideration and recommendation to the County Board of Supervisors for their approval. Once the board has approved, the report will be submitted to CalRecycle Local Assistance and Market Development Division for their review. Within 90 days of receiving a completed 5-year review report, the LAMD, which is the Local Assistant and Market Development Division of CalRecycle, staff will review the report and prepare their findings in an agenda for formal consideration by CalRecycle. Staff recommends that the board hold a public hearing to listen to any public comment in regards to the 4th 5-year review of the county-wide integrated waste management plan, and approve and authorize the Community Development Agency Director to sign and submit the report to CalRecycle. That's the end of my report. Do you guys have any questions?
Thank you. Questions from the board? Okay, I'm seeing no questions from the board. We'll go ahead and open this to the public at this time. And Madam Clerk, do we have any comments from the public?
I have no written comments and no one with their hand up.
Okay. Very good. Seeing no public comment, we'll bring it back to the board for action.
There are no comments or questions. Mr. Chair, move for adoption as presented.
I'll second that. My trash, my choice.
That's it.
All right.
Back your trash.
We have a motion and a second. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Joan Ebbs?
Yes.
Richard Valley?
Aye.
Greg Verboen?
Yeah.
Craig Peterson?
Aye.
Richard Fagundes?
Yes.
Okay, very good. We have 5 in favor. And that brings us to the end of our regular agenda today. We'll move on to board member announcements and reports. Supervisor Verboen.
Yeah, so like I said earlier, I had a conference call with 9 county representatives from our, we don't belong to the lobbying group, but we're included into it, with Paul Yoder. And we talked to the governor's office and her staff, discussed how COVID vaccine rollout we could work together and what our problems were, and that data be below. All 9 counties felt that they were the same, with too much information being released to the public and not being told to the government agencies, making us look like a bunch of idiots. And they seem to keep doing it. I mean, Friday they were releasing stuff out without telling us, so they need to stop that and work with us. I mean, we're all here together. There's only 600,000 doses a week that are delivered to California, and this week we will get to Greece. So we made a little bit of noise on Friday or Thursday when we had our conference call. They seem to understand, and we're not alone when it comes to rolling it out. We all feel we can get more. I think in time we'll be okay. Hopefully by June we got everybody vaccinated and we can move forward. But that was last week. That's all I got.
Thank you, Supervisor. Good. Supervisor Ness.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. A couple of weeks covering CalVans. We got everybody seated with the elections and everybody getting assigned to different committees. CalVans, we were able to establish a quorum. We were able to adopt the audit as well as welcome those new members, and then continue to work on the services. Just as a reminder, that organization at one time had over 800 units on the road, and now we're down just a shade under 400. Some of that's seasonal, some of it's going to be operational changes just because of COVID and everything else going on in the world. The Homeless Collaborative also had a meeting where we continue to explore ways of assisting homeless population. We are planning on next month, March, receiving information of trying to determine the obstacles of developing housing for low income housing or affordable housing units. And so that'll be looking forward to receiving that report and having that discussion. Calviva continues to have some of the challenges also being created by over the pharmacy product of Calviva Managed Care. So we got out of divested from that project. And then about October, they said they changed their mind and they weren't going to be able to take the project over in January. It would be April. And then in January, they told us, well, April is not going to work for us either. So maybe we'll either give it back to you or we'll make a determination in May. And so in the meantime, that whole process has just cost the organization probably short of $100 million or so, if it extends the rest of this calendar year. And there's no resolution. So I think one that we did send or plan on sending is that the state can either figure out, do they want it in January of 2022, or maybe just leave it alone and give it back to us so we can go back and do the job that we were doing before. Our enrollment did reach 377,000, which is a high for that organization. It's reflective of the economy. It's reflective of everything going on. Calviva next month will also be celebrating its 10th year of operation. I think I began that process 11 or 12 years ago with the exploration and the planning and the development of that organization, and it seems to have worked out pretty well in spite of the obstacles the state continues to throw in front of us. So with that, thank you very much.
Very good. Supervisor Rowley.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Very quickly, just want to thank everyone. 2 weeks ago, when our board last met, we passed that letter to the CEO of CVS, and so I want to thank staff, everyone who worked in support of getting that letter out. And at the end of the day, for whatever happens, CVS, as we know now, will be having vaccines administered out of their Kings County stores. And so I want to thank CVS for that. And just for the public, I want people to know that, as I'm continuing to take this pandemic very seriously, I look forward to the day when I can get my vaccine. I'm waiting patiently. And until that time, I'll continue to attend to county business from home, working from home every day, attending our board meeting virtually. But once I'm able to receive the vaccine, I look forward to joining the Board of Supervisors back in the county chambers. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. And for myself, had a good week as I mentioned earlier, met with the COVID-19 task force, government relations contact. Again, had a great discussion and shared a lot of information with her. Then had a nice phone chat with Senator Hurtado. She's reintroducing SB 559, and as you recall, last year it made it to the governor's desk where it was vetoed, and so hopefully we can get it to its final step through the final steps this year. Also, yesterday spent about an hour or so with the district rep for Congressman Valadao, Clayton Smith, and just shared with him a lot of information, and also chatted with him about our legislative platform, and look forward to working with him as well. And from that standpoint, and also with respect to the CVS, they did, the regional rep did send me a email just stating that she had received the letter, and that, just the timeline of information flowing, and that CVS had was, their intention was to do it locally in Hanford, but appreciated that email as well. And so with that, we'll move on to board correspondence.
Yes, thank you, Supervisor Peterson, for mentioning that. That letter from CVS is part of our correspondence. It's there for your viewing. The CVS organization did start vaccines on February 12th at the Hanford CVS site in North Hanford. Also in correspondence, there's 2 items from Fish and Game, a proposed emergency regulation action, and also a notice of findings concerning the California Department of Fish and Wildlife's 5-year species review report. From Children's Health Defense, there's a notice of potential school district liabilities in correspondence involving around COVID-19. Also from the Insurance Commissioner, there's an item on legislation introduced to protect patients in recovery from drug and alcohol abuse. And also the board did receive an invitation to participate in a redistricting webinar, and this is being put on from CSAC and from RCRC. Upcoming agenda items next week, we'll have the admin COVID-19 update from the health department. Also from behavioral health, there's 2 agreements that will come before the board, one for the Kingsview Corporation Services for Warm Line program, and also for psychiatric services for children's psychiatric needs. From the Community Development Agency, there will be 2 land conservation items, property owner initiated for both of them. One is a non-renewal of contract number 47, and the other is a non-renewal of contract number 978. From the Health Department, we'll have an item on Women, Infants, and Children's Program grant funds. From Public Works, there'll be a track 756 phase 4-3 subdivision improvement agreement coming before the board on March 9th. We will bring the public hearing as directed today for the CDBG coronavirus grant round 2 and 3. And then we're shooting for March 23rd for Women's History Month recognition. Thank you.
All right, very good. So at this point, we have finished our agenda for the day, except for closed session. We will move to that, and the issue is Leprino Foods versus County of Kings, Government Code Section 54956.9. And Council, do you expect any reporting out?
I do not, Mr. Chair, but before you convene into closed session, you may want to move forward with the Cal Public Finance Authority meeting and the Cal Community Housing Authority meeting.
Yep, that's my intention. Okay, so at this point, then we will move to our California Public Finance Authority regular meeting. So the Board of Supervisors meeting is adjourned to closed session, and at this time, we'll move to California Public Finance Authority regular meeting. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Joe Neves.
Here.
Richard Valley.
Here.
Doug Verboon.
Here.
Craig Peterson.
I am here.
Richard Fagundes.
Here. All All right, so I am looking through my packet and I do not have the California Public Finance Authority packet.
Should have been on the back.
I got CalCHA.
Should have been right in front of us.
Very good. All right, so we'll move to item 2, and that is approval of the February 9th, 2021 regular meeting minutes.
So move it, Chair.
Okay, we have a motion and second. Madam Clerk, please call roll.
Joe Nevs,
Yes.
Richard Valley,
Aye.
Doug Verboon,
Yes.
Craig Peterson,
Aye.
Richard Fagundes.
Here.
We have 5 in favor and also 1 here. We'll move on to item 3, which is the consent calendar. We have 1 item under consent calendar.
Move as outlined, Mr. Chair.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and second. Madam Clerk, please call roll.
Joe Nevs,
Yes.
Richard Valley, Doug Verboon,
Yes.
Craig Peterson,
Aye.
Richard Fagundes.
Okay, 5 in favor. We'll move on to item 4, which is public comment. Madam Clerk, do we have any public comment written or otherwise?
I have no one with their hand up, and I have not received any written comment.
Okay, very good. We'll move on to item 5, which is staff updates. Do we have any staff updates today? Hearing none, we'll move on to adjournment.
No updates.
And,
It's on mute.
go ahead.
Yeah, no updates. I thought I was off.
All righty. Thank you. So at this point, we've reached item 6 was adjournment. So at this point, the California Public Finance Authority meeting stands adjourned. Now we'll move to the California Community Housing Agency Development regular meeting. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Joe Nevs.
Here.
Richard Valley,
Here.
Doug Verboon.
Here.
Craig Peterson,
Here.
Richard Fagundes.
Here.
Okay, very good. At this point, item 2 on the agenda is election of officers.
And as you guys noticed in the past, we always hear the position of KPFA. So
Yeah, you're broken up a little bit there.
can you guys hear me?
Kind of in and out, but
Oh, shoot.
You mean make a motion?
How's that?
yeah,
Elections of officers.
yeah, yeah. So yeah,
I'm going to make a motion to elect Supervisor Peterson and Supervisor Joe Nevs as vice chair. Supervisor Peterson as chair, Supervisor Peterson as vice chair, and I ask for his nomination.
Said it.
Yeah.
Secretary treasurer.
You want to, what are you going to do? Are you going to volunteer?
You're all of one.
Yeah, generally we just copy whatever CalPFA board members are.
Yep.
Yeah.
CalCHA, this is Catherine. Does CalCHA require a secretary treasurer?
Yeah, let's just do exactly the same as CalPFA if you guys don't mind.
Oh, yeah. Well, that's all right then.
I make a motion to approve the chairs as California Public Finance Authority is keeping the same. So Supervisor Peterson, Supervisor Nevs, and Supervisor Nevs can be secretary, treasurer, and all that in one.
Thank you. Second that.
All right, and just for clarity, is that correct? I know I have to sign some documents now and then as well.
You gotta be here.
Yeah, no, I know, but from the treasury standpoint, I just don't want to conflict what we currently have.
Yeah, no, that's correct. It'll be the same, but it'll just be for CalCHA. So we'll get you over documents to sign as chair.
Scott, his question is when he's signing, is he signing as a secretary treasurer? Craig is under the understanding he's signing as in a different capacity.
Well, no, it's Craig's chair of CalPFA and CalCHA. He'll be signing as the chair of CalCHA and CalPFA.
Okay, yeah, clarity. All right, cool. Thank you. So we have a motion and a second.
Mr. Chair, just so I understand, the nomination is for you to be nominated for chair, as Vice Chair Neves to be nominated for vice chair, and you to be secretary treasurer?
Supervisor Ness.
Sesh.
Whoever, whatever you do in Cal PFA.
Yeah. In a mirror.
What do we do in Cal PFA?
Yeah, that was my question.
Here's what I'll talk to you guys. Yeah, hold on.
Okay.
So Couch is going to mirror the Cal PFA position. So chair is Craig Peterson, vice chair is Neves, and then secretary treasurer is Doug Verboon.
That's what I thought.
Dang it.
And that's what I seconded.
Sorry, Doug, you don't get it.
Yeah.
Hey, whatever, I can handle it.
All right.
All right, it just makes it easier to kind of have the same for both, which is what we've done.
No, we agree. Just wanted clarity on that.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, that's it.
okay, so we have a motion and a second. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Joe Neves.
Yes.
Richard Valley.
Aye.
Ed Verboon.
Yes.
Craig Peterson.
Aye.
Richard Fagundes.
Yes.
Okay, we have 5 in favor. We'll move on to item 3, approval of the minutes from the January 12th, 2021 meeting.
So move.
Second.
Okay, motion and a second. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Joe Neves.
Yes.
Richard Valley. Ed Verboon.
Yes.
Craig Peterson.
Aye.
Richard Fagundes.
Yes.
Okay, 5 in favor. We'll move on to item 4, which is the consent calendar. And so if
I'll
there
make
are
a
no,
motion to approve,
As printed.
as printed.
Second that.
all righty, we have a motion and a second. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Joe Neves.
Yes.
Richard Valley.
Aye.
Ed Verboon.
Yes.
Craig Peterson.
Aye.
Richard Fagundes.
Yes.
Okay, we have 5 in favor as well on that item. We'll move on to new business. Item 5A. Scott, are you going to outline these?
Yeah, I'll just do a quick outline for you guys. But again, this is for our middle income housing program. So we got 2 new opportunities that have been brought to us by the Catalyst Housing Group. So first one is Creekwood Apartments. This is 309 units. It's a multifamily rental housing facility. It's in Hayward, California. This project's currently 100% market rate rental community. So it's before you guys today. Couch is going to issue up to $200 million of governmental purpose bonds to acquire the project. Currently, it's being controlled by Catalyst through a purchase and sale agreement, which will then get converted over to Calcha. Hayward already joined Calcha and obviously well aware of what we're doing on this project and super excited that we're going to come in, purchase this, and then put in some middle income housing restrictions on the property. Because again, currently it's just being operated as a market rate property. So we're going to loop in Graystar as our property manager. They're currently our property manager on other assets that Calcha owns. We thought they'd be a good fit for this one. So they're going to be on board with that. Again, as you guys are, I mean, pretty well aware of the program. You know, we're going to come in, acquire this rental restrictions. For Hayward, we're going to go anywhere from 60% to 120% of AMI. There'll be a regulatory agreement placed on the property and be in place for the entire ownership of Calcha. Again, there's going to be no displacement policy. We're not going to go in there and kick anyone out. Just as there's natural turnover on the units, we'll put our rent restrictions in. Just like all the other deals, you guys, we have all the same structure. We have all the same protections. Calcha is not responsible for any debt service. Again, Hayward is just thrilled about this and looking to close this transaction at the end of March. So that's it for this Creekwood, and can take questions if the board has it.
Okay, any questions, comments?
Second.
So we have a motion and second for item 5A. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Joe Neves.
Yes.
Richard Valley.
Aye.
Ed Verboon.
Yes.
Craig Peterson.
Aye.
Richard Fagundes.
Yes.
5 in favor. Okay, on to item B. Scott.
Perfect. So this is another opportunity brought to us by Catalyst. We're calling this one Glenville Properties because we're actually going to be acquiring 2 projects. They're about a mile apart. But since these are on the same timeline, we just said, talked to the financing team. We all decided it makes a lot more sense to treat this as one transaction. So we're going to be acquiring, it's called Next on Lex Apartments. It's 494 units in Glendale. And then a mile away, we have the Brio Apartments, which is a 205 unit multifamily rental housing facility, also in Glendale. Again, currently, these are fully leased up and operating today as 100% market rate rental communities. Again, Glendale is completely on board with what we're doing, super excited about the program. They have already joined CalCHA and given us our approvals for these two projects. Again, these are two multifamily market rate communities. We're going to acquire them under a single bond issuance. It's going to be a not to exceed amount of 600 million of governmental purpose bonds to acquire the project. We're also going to have Greystar as the property manager for both of these locations under a single property management agreement since they're only a mile apart. This is going to be a first for CalCHA, where the Glendale, as long as the numbers worked, have asked us to include 10% of the units at 50% of AMI, which is very low income households. And then we're going to do 10% of the units earning no more than 80% of AMI. And then the balance of the units will be earning no more than 120% of AMI. So pretty cool. The numbers worked out where we were able to do 10% at 50%, and we haven't done that in any of our other properties to date. So again, we're providing very low income housing here, which is not currently at this project. So again, you can understand why Glendale is so excited about CalCHA coming in and doing this. So again, same structure as all the other financings. We have all the same protections in place. And yeah, pretty excited about this one. So this is also looking to close at the end of March. So that's it for Glendale, and also can take questions if the board has any.
Very good, thank you. Questions, comments? If not, motions.
Make a motion to approve resolution 101-038, Glendale Apartment, Glendale Properties.
Second.
Okay. And just for clarity, item 5B, we have a motion and second. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Joe Nevs.
Yes.
Richie Valley.
Aye.
Doug Gruen.
Yes.
Craig Peterson.
Aye.
Richie Cadendas.
Yes.
Okay, we have 5 in favor as well on that item. Okay, on to item 6, public comment. Any person may directly address the board at this time on any item on the agenda or other items of interest to the public that is within the subject matter jurisdiction of the board. 5 minutes are allowed for each item. Do we have any public comment?
I see no one with hands up and received no written comments.
All right, thank you. At this point, we'll move on to item 7, which is staff updates. Scott, you have anything further for us?
Yeah, we just found out actually about a new project that we're going to be going under contract on in Antioch. So we're going to come there. So we'll probably be back. As you guys can imagine, this program is getting a lot of traction out there. We have a lot of communities calling us, reaching out, hoping we can find an opportunity in their city. So again, we got to make sure the numbers work. It's not that easy, but again, we're hoping for additional opportunities.
Could you readdress where it's at? You cut out just for a second there.
Oh, sorry. We're in Antioch.
Antioch, very good.
Yeah. Sorry, I guess the computer's acting up today, so sorry about that.
Yeah. All right. No further. That's the updates for today. And at this point, we will move to item 8, which is adjournment. So with no further comments from the board or actions, we'll call this meeting adjourned.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Move up here,
Oh, yeah.
Catherine, I sent you the link for the closed session.
I think they're muted.
Catherine, I'm still going to need the link for the closed session.
I'll forward it to you, Carrie.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Erin, can you go ahead and end this meeting and then we'll open the closed session?
Yep, I'll end it right now. Thank you all.
Thank you.